Hello, my name is Keith, and this is part of a series of videos providing program development opportunities for nonprofits. These videos may help you determine a better way to manage programs and avoid common mistakes. Most of these things shared or come from my own experience working in the nonprofit world. This video is about fund distribution process and procedures. Whether it is funding for one program or for many, you can adjust accordingly. And if you like these videos, please subscribe on this YouTube channel. First of all, before you start any process like this, you need to create and review your process timeline with your staff. Staff input and their buy-in is important to the process. You also need to check with other calendars, holidays that may interrupt, and major events to avoid conflicts. Then you have to create or review your application and changes. Meet with the staff to make changes to the application that you're providing to the agencies for funding. And that application will need to meet the needs of the receiving agencies and obtain the information required for an efficient distribution process. So you create or review your application for assistance, review the list of recommended changes from the previous year if you did this the year before, and review changes in agency or program names. Sometimes if you neglect to make sure those names are correct, that could create an embarrassing situation for you. Recruit the Funding Distribution Committee. The Fund Distribution Committee is a group of high-level volunteers who complete a process of reviewing all your program requests, determine funding amounts, review recommendations from the panels, and make the funding recommendations to your board of directors. The chair of the committee serves as the board representative. This committee is really important in that it's not the funding agency specifically making the decisions, but it's these group of high-level volunteers who run and make the decisions in this process. It really helps avoid the bias of the funding agency and helps the process along much better. That committee maintain a committee of 6 to 8 individuals. These individuals should be stakeholders invested in the success of the project. They could be donors, like for an allocations process committee, representatives of similar agencies, like let's say you're doing disaster funding and you're supporting disaster programs. You might want to have those disaster agencies actually be a part of that panel to help determine who can best use those funds. Or volunteers personally invested in a particular cause. Let's say you have funds available for a particular hunger need, and you have individuals in the community who are volunteers invested in that cause. You can bring those people in as members of that funding committee. 6 members is best for consensus, but you should have at least 2 more due to absences and scheduling conflicts. And seek high-level replacements as needed. If each year you need to connect with the current members to ask if they wish to continue. You'll need to recruit replacements as needed. Next, create your proposed site visit and presentation schedule. Your staff develops a proposed site visit presentation schedule and panel descriptions that are presented to the president or the director for review. The potential receiving agencies are provided the opportunity for virtual, in-person, or on-site as options. Once the schedule is complete, it's sent out to the participating agencies as a final project. So determine your panels. If you are allocating funds for multiple agencies, you'll need to divide them up into panels of similar services. Example, all the early child care organizations in one panel, all the basic needs organizations in one panel. Multiple agencies should be divided up into panels of not less than 4. Any less than 4 agencies per panel will skew your overall funding process. If funding is for only one agency or a smaller number of agencies, then maybe one panel would suffice. Determine site visit and presentation locations. Each agency will need to present their case for funding. The site visit and presentations should be scheduled for the best opportunity for the panel members to understand the services that are provided. Some agencies are not designed for site visits at the agency location. It might be just a number of offices, and who wants to just go visit a bunch of offices? Some agencies may provide the opportunity for a meaningful tour. Make sure the tour and presentation is focused exclusively on the reasons for the funding. Information about unfunded programs could confuse the panel members and really um, cause an issue for the overall process. Create the schedule and send proposed tour and presentation schedule requests to the agencies, back to the agencies for their review. Then you have the first Fund Distribution Committee meeting. The first meeting of the Fund Distribution Committee is held to discuss the overall allocations process, make decisions about the review items and bonus points if needed, and adjust for changes in that process. The Funding Distribution Committee meets to discuss review process. They send out, and you need to, as the staff person, send out outreach invites, calendar invites for each of the Funding Distribution Committee meetings. Agency technical training is next. The agency representatives are invited to attend a training that reviews the application being made available and any changes in that process. Agencies are trained on the application and proposed changes. Send email invites to agencies for 2 training options, one in an afternoon and one in a morning. The portal for applications and grant reports for previous recipients are available to agencies. Provide a 30-day timeline. The agencies complete their applications for funding on the online portal. Your agency needs to determine if it has an open or closed application process. A closed process occurs through invitation and in alignment with initiatives. Send the email to agencies to determine agency staff access to portal, and then send an email to agencies to complete the applications and grant reports if they have already received funding in the past. Recruit your finance and governance volunteers. The finance and governance volunteers are a group of financial reviewers. They are assigned a portion of the agencies to review their financial and governance statements, including the 990, the annual audit, the board structure, financial statements, and other documents that determine their financial stability. The number of reviewers required is determined by the number of agencies applying. One volunteer should review no more than 4 agencies. So each year, maintain your reviewers. Reviewers need to have a professional background in finances. They might be a CPA, an auditor, something related to financial management. And then you seek financial professionals to fill any available slots. Next on your calendar is to seek out or send out panel volunteer invitations. The allocation process places high importance on the decision-making power of donors, board members, and volunteers. The panel volunteers participate in a site visit and tour and hear a presentation on the business aspects of the programs to make decisions regarding the allocation of funding. The goal each year is to have a specific number of unduplicated volunteers participate in the process. So you'll create panels, and there's 2 processes for how to do this. One is the community impact model. So you'd send out volunteer invites to your high-level donors, then you send out invites to last year panel members, send out volunteer invites to board members, and then finally send out volunteer invites to potential donors. The other model is the collective impact model, and that's where you would send out volunteer invites to organizations that are working together towards a specific shared goal. I use the example of disaster support. If you're going to provide disaster support, you might want on that particular panel those organizations that work in disasters. Funding applications and grant reports are then due from the partner agencies. For 30 days, the agencies complete their applications for funding on the online portal. Agencies are strongly encouraged to complete their applications by the deadline date, as the portal will close at the close of the day. If you allow for an extension, then you will open the door for a number of agencies to continue to push for that extension, and that creates havoc for your process. Staff will monitor the completion of the applications. Reminders are sent out to the agencies 2 weeks and 1 week before the deadline ends. Applications and grant reports are due 30 days from access to the portal. Finance and governance documents are provided to each of the finance and governance volunteers. The program applications and grant reports are provided to each of the Fund Distribution Committee members. Packages are then created for the Fund Distribution Committee that includes the applications and the grant reports. Packages are created for the Finance and Governance reviewers that not only includes the applications and grant reports, but also their financial documents and their governance documents. Packages are created for the panel volunteers. They get everything: the applications, the grant reports, the panel notes if you had panel notes from the year before, and the finance and governance reviews. For agency training on the site visits and presentations, requesting agency representatives are asked to attend a training on what to prepare for when completing their site visits and presentations for the panel volunteers. Agency representatives who are veterans of the process don't necessarily need to attend that training. Send out email invites to agencies for 2 training options, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. Explain the process providing site visits and presentation to the panels. And then you have the second Fund Distribution Committee meeting. That one completes a program by program review of all the programs based on their criticality to safety net, their program effectiveness, their financial health, their alignment with the initiatives that you're provided, and if they also receive match funding. Match funding is funding that they receive as a result of the funding you provide. They are able to get extra government funding. Staff member completes a program by program review of all the programs. This staff member should not be the executive director or the board chair. You want to avoid any bias and avoid any accusation of bias. The Fund Distribution Committee members complete a program by program review of the selected programs. One Fund Distribution Committee member can complete a program by program review of all the programs, and the Fund Distribution Committee meets then to complete the overall program by program process. Finance and governance reviews are due, and finance and governance volunteers are provided 30 days to complete a review of each agency's financial documents and governance to determine their overall financial status. Each agency is also given a ranking of 1 being the least to 5 being the best for the program by program review worksheet. Finance and governance volunteers complete a review of their assigned agencies using the review form. The completed review forms are included in the volunteer panels packages, and those packages could be PDFs and or actual binders. Volunteer panel training. Panel volunteers receive training on the site visit, the presentations, and the deliberations. Volunteers make the decision on funding. Staff guide the process. They keep the discussion and going and timing on track, and watch for any issues that may need intervention by the president immediately or later by the Fund Distribution Committee. The training covers the campaign outcome, the program funding requests, and the designation discussion. Training also covers the Fund Distribution Committee program by program review and the process to determine the panel funding. Volunteers are trained on the finance and governance review and the financial stability portion of the program by program review. The previous year's panel remarks are included in the packets. The training covers the process for the site visit, tour, presentations, and deliberations. Then you have the third Fund Distribution Committee meeting. That committee meeting completes a panel by panel review based on their average program by program review score and a review of the requests made on each panel. The Fund Distribution Committee determines how much is allocated to each of the panels. The staff review all the requests made on the panels, averages the average program by program review scores, and provides a staff recommendation to the Fund Distribution Committee. The Fund Distribution Committee reviews the staff recommendation and adjusts as needed. The staff also presents their requests for funding internal agency program initiatives. And then come the agency presentations. Panel volunteers meet to begin the site visits, presentations, and deliberations. For large distributions, each panel has 4 agencies representing as many as 3 programs for each agency. At the end of each day, the panel members complete panel remarks and complete the allocations spreadsheet recommending funding for each panel. The panel volunteers, usually 6 to 10 on a panel, meet for a brief orientation to the day and then leave by van or in separate cars to the first location. A staff person keeps the site visit and presentation on time, keeps the discussion focused on the program, requesting funding, and helps avoid getting stuck too long on one topic or issue. The staff person should not show bias toward any program or agency. During the process, the panel members will meet for lunch. The panel members complete their site visits and then return to the funding agency for deliberations. While the panel members discuss each program, a staff member records the information into the panel remarks. Once the panel remarks are completed, the volunteers make funding decisions based on the amount allocated to the panel. During deliberations, the volunteers receive a certificate and gift for participation. And then you have the 4th Fund Distribution Committee meeting. That's the final review. The Fund Distribution Committee meets to review the panel recommendations, address any concerns that are raised, adjust where needed, and submit the final committee approved allocations to the board for approval. And then the funding decisions are presented to the board for approval. And then once all that is completed, you pull the information from the applications into the database, sort for demographics needed for grant writing, sort for information regarding matching funds, sort for unit costs, waiting lists, etc., and then fill in the unit costs and stats from the completed database from the applications for marketing. Contract award letters, panel remarks are then mailed out. The signed contracts are due. New funding year begins, and then you open the year-end report and revise budgets, email requests to agencies for completion of their year-end grant reports or revised budgets. And then finally, the year-end report and revised budgets are then due back in, and the process starts all over again. Thank you. If you appreciate these videos, please subscribe.